Hey there.
Hello.
I always love your green walls.
Oh, thank you.
Very happy.
Thank you.
So
So
tell me how this goes. If I go here, and I do this, I think I feel like it's so messy that you have to,
I still see just your name.
yes. I believe I need to go like this, share, and then hit press.
Okay, I'm starting to see something.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. Perfect.
Uh-oh, I see proprietary and confidential. That's not what I want.
Oh,
That.
but I'm seeing our slides.
Okay, good.
Yep, I'm seeing our slides.
Why? I thought I removed all these little proprietary and confidentials. Here's my references list.
Nice.
So that's a deal though. Does that mean that, I mean, I know I made the text on the slides look better. I know I'm still showing my screen. But I want to get this stuff resolved. Took it off of there. I took it off of there. It's not on here. It's not on there. I wasn't able to figure out a way to do it where I could see your notes. So you have your notes separately, you were
I
saying?
have my notes on flashcards, so I'm all good.
Awesome. Okay.
Yep, I'm all good, so don't worry. Yep.
This needs to go. The irony of doing a public presentation on a slide that says proprietary and confidential kind of cracks me up. All right.
I know. But I couldn't see that though when you had it up. And I have it on my end, it says view as an attendee. So I clicked view as an attendee. So yeah. Hopefully this will be good.
Well, and I can claim host, which I think is funny,
Oh, that's interesting.
but I'm not going to do that because I don't think I need to.
I'm not gonna do that, but I can if I want to.
I will go on camera in just 1 second. I actually
Yeah,
have to brush my hair, actually.
no problem. I gotta have a little caffeine in a second.
Good choice.
Good job. Have a little caffeine.
Amy is physically there. So I'm
Wait,
curious.
who is the physically there?
Amy Mecklenburg
Ah,
Hanger is actually attending.
oh, nice.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that I bet you what's going to happen is they'll join in the room and we'll be able to see her joined in the room. And then, I don't know, we should have a graduate assistant helping us set up, but I haven't seen that person. And there's
Yeah,
a little spiel that they need for me to say. So I'm
yeah.
keeping one eye on my Hoover in case they're gonna try to message me from there. But
Yeah. Hoova.
hi, Hannah.
Hello. I gotta put on a light so I can see my notes better. Let's see if this will.
How's your morning?
It's been good. It got unexpectedly busy.
Mm.
That's why I was like, oh, I gotta eat real fast.
All right. Does
I'm
this
excited for
background
you
light
both.
look weird? Or is that good? Is it all right?
Oh, looks good.
All right.
All right, it is what it is.
It is what it is. I'm gonna try and talk slow.
I just heard thunder. Okay.
Oh no!
That's unexpected. It's sunny. Maybe it wasn't thunder. Might not have been thunder.
Maybe it's just like a truck.
Yeah, well, if I get randomly cut off, that's not too bad because you guys are really the important people here.
So if when it's time for me to change the slide, I'll just say thanks, Julie.
Yeah, you just tell me. I'll do it
Okay.
for you.
Yeah, because I only have 2 slides. Not a big deal. But exciting.
Is there a chat
exciting.
in Zoom? Why do I not have a chat option? Do y'all have one? Or all the
There's one.
chats in Hoover?
It's over on the side. Like I'm looking at my screen. It's like I don't know. It's like this weird white thing on the side. It says questions. Do you have
Oh.
something on this right of your screen that says view as moderator, ask a question,
Nope.
Q&A, polls, chat, community?
Nope.
Did
I
you
do not.
enter? Did you enter through Wahoo or did you enter through Zoom?
I did the Zoom. I entered through Zoom.
Oh, I entered through Wahoo, so I wonder if that made a difference.
Yes, do that, Hannah.
Okay.
That will help you. Remove this picture board that I have wanted to put up but haven't put up.
Oh,
I'll show it to you. There's my
look at
boys
that.
being real
Oh,
cute.
your little adventures, your
doing all the
babies.
things, being real cute. So
It goes by so fast. Enjoy
you
it.
know, I feel like I'm so happy. My husband did that for oh, this is a Julie story. So he did this for one of the grandmothers, and I was like, you can't give it to them because it's mine now.
Pretty much. Yep. I hear you. I hear you. I know.
Exercising my privileges, you know.
Yeah. It happens so fast. It goes by so fast.
You know, I know. Well, tomorrow is a 8th birthday, and all
Oh.
week long, and when I've referenced it, I've actually said he's 6 turning 7. So I missed a whole year.
Yeah, you missed a whole year there.
Well, you're there. Where I am paying attention.
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. I know. I have a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old, and it's like, it's just, you blink.
Really?
You blink.
All right. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. Because it was like, you need permission from your administrator. I was like, what?
What?
I guess my this new issued laptop didn't like that it asked for my microphone access.
Oh, yes.
Looks like it worked, so we're good. But yeah, now I can see all that stuff.
Excellent.
In the training session, they had mentioned just log in through Zoom, so it will look normal. So that's what I did, but this is good now. I can see it all.
Oh.
All right. Nice, Hannah.
Do you know which PowerPoint you're on?
I think Amanda Groves is going to be able to join.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So that'll be good to see her.
I like her.
Wonder.
I don't think I have access rights to that.
No. I don't know if they can hear us. Hello in there.
Oh, I wonder if they can hear us.
I got this in the mail. Put it up yet.
Yay!
I was looking at yours in the background. Gotta
Yay! It's exciting.
get a frame for that.
Yes, you do.
On the list of things that I need to do.
I
think
know.
My mom said that she would do it for me because she knows me and she knows it's gonna like sit here.
That was like that was a mom gift.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Sit here
Have-
getting coffee stains and stuff.
Yeah.
Stays around me too long. Nope. Looks okay. I know. Where's the chat? How do I use the chat? Do I not have a chat? So I'm sitting here like I have access to chat, Hannah, and I don't see that.
Over on the right of my screen, there's like a white section. It says QA, polls, chat, community.
Huh. I'm gonna try coming in the other way.
Through Zoom. Now I'm wondering if I should go through Zoom.
Now I'm through Hoova, so
Oh my.
I can see it all
But,
now.
but you see the chat. Yeah, so I do
Yeah.
too. But I wonder if it's because she's sharing. So
Oh yeah, yeah. We need her to be able to share.
This is your PowerPoint presentation,
There's two of them.
or if you send it here on the second screen. I'm gonna switch it to that in a moment.
You're on a whole different one today now. I just share the screen. Well, I did what you just did.
We're getting there.
Oh. Okay. Well, not sure what to do with that. It looks like on the screen in the room, I see a slide with our logo. Do you see that, Amanda?
Okay, all I'm doing is throwing it on the second screen.
let's see.
Unless that's not.
I cannot. No, I could barely see. See, when I click on that, I get a black. Let's see. It was like a glare, so I can't tell.
Screen saver.
There. 1 presentation. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3,
I don't know if Southern New Hampshire built all of theirs in one slide deck, but I should have a slide deck.
I wonder if they can't hear us.
If you have access to the chat, could you ask?
Yeah. Can you hear us?
There were two in the box.
All right, well, Hoover crashed on me, so I'm back in through Zoom. I figured that's safer, I guess. So now I don't have the chat again, but that's okay. I figure it's better than disappearing.
Call H3 number.
Yeah, yes, it's that one, but it's a, we had some computer issues yesterday, hence the tech is here, trying to not have the same stuff today. Like the clicker wouldn't work and, and so I was, forwarding the slides for the people and all of a sudden that went.
I just sent a message to them. I said, can you hear us? I wonder if there's any way I could get their attention.
I'm trying to think through options that I might have.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe a reaction.
I checked my email in case there was an email at some point that I missed, but no. So let's see.
Okay. So now all you have to do is, just like before, open up your PowerPoint. Screen please. And it's, your PowerPoint's going to display over there.
Who's first, you or them?
I don't know. Can they hear me?
We can hear you in the room.
The microphone's right here. You're gonna leave this up there anyway. So.
Okay.
Yeah, they can hear you.
Good
What
idea.
order? Hi,
Hello.
hey.
Hi.
How are you?
What order do we want to go in?
Up to you. I had prepared for Amy to go first, but we can
Sounds good.
change that. I see our slide up, but if you want to put your slide up to start, then I can share after that.
Okay, sounds good. How are you all today, by the way?
Great. It's great to see you.
Nice to see you
You're
too.
still sharing your screen. It's just sharing what you're seeing on the projector.
So I need to not share that one.
Does it matter if we're logged in through the Zoom or Wahoo?
Yes, it does matter. You'll get more if you're in Zoom. I noticed y'all talking a while ago, though, there is no chat in Zoom. You have to chat in Google.
Instead of going to share.
Hi.
Close that.
Online?
Open power, go back.
I'm sorry, I'm hearing different people talk. Does she want us to be logged in through Zoom?
Here you go.
There.
Okay, that's because you're opening that directly through Box.
Amanda, do you mind putting in the chat that we're having trouble hearing them in the room?
I think they're not. I don't know how well you can hear me. I've got a little mic near me, but I think they're trying to figure some stuff out. So I think you all are okay to hang out until they get it done.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Couldn't hear that.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. I've got a little mic sitting near me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
Good.
Yeah.
There's no one in the room. I I think maybe lunch ran a little late. I can't tell
Oh,
if anybody
okay.
else is online.
All
We're
right.
starting to have a few people join, which is great to see.
All right. So I'm wondering, should I go log in through Zoom? I'm in through Wahoo. Should I go into Zoom or should I stay in Wahoo?
That's great.
I have a preference that if one of us has access to the chat, that
That I'll say. I'll just stay in here.
Because I'm sorry, I can't figure it out. 'cause
Yeah.
I
I'll
should-
stay here and I give you the chat goblin, I guess. You know, so if anything comes up through the chat. And
Thank you. That's very kind of you to offer.
sure.
All right.
There's a question in the chat. Are you willing to share the slides in the chat?
Julie, I'm not.
Sorry for the presentation. Yeah, I think I was assuming that we would,
Okay.
as long as you all are comfortable with that, Hannah and Amanda.
Hi, please come in.
Yeah.
Please, please come in.
Do you want me to sit in the front too?
Yes.
Okay.
Make me feel less alone in here.
Is everybody else online?
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm happy to have physical
Which one?
one on your shoulder.
My Artemis, she's brand new.
That is
She's actually
gorgeous.
still healing.
That is good
I'm not happy
work.
about it. Thank you. Yeah, he's done all of it. My
I love the
tiger-
highlight, the white highlight on the nose and the lips. It's really pretty.
Hi.
Hi.
He was like, I'm just gonna do this. And I was like, oh, no. But everybody seems to be great. So.
My mother is still shocked that I have none. She definitely thought I was her child who's most likely to have a tattoo, and I have never gotten one. And she was convinced. I know it is not. I think I have a lack of commitment problem. I wasn't sure early on what I could live with forever.
Thank you. That was Artemis. That was to me. Yeah. She's my newest piece. These were my COVID. This was how I got through COVID. Seriously.
I started a garden. That was my. Yeah. Hi, come in. We're just getting technical difficulties.
We just got out of the.
Someone said lunch maybe had run a little late. Oh, the top. I ducked out a little early so that I could be prepared, find the right place for the bathroom.
Very
Are we ready? Do we have a clicker to change slides?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can always tell you when to change that. I gotta learn not to stand in front of the camera. Okay. All right, there we go. Hi, thank you all for coming this afternoon. Sorry about the little difficulty there. This is a panel that looks at doing faculty development training in WAC in online environments. I'm joined by my colleagues online at Southern New Hampshire University, who are a massive online program. It makes my program look tiny by comparison, so they'll be speaking after me. What I'm going to share with you today is a design that we made to take our already existing programs, which are offered both online and face-to-face for faculty, to design an advanced version of that workshop so that people could move past WAC 101, which we seem terminally stuck at WAC 101, and to teach a workshop that would span across locations and modalities. Before I came to Park University, I had been trained in WAC at 3 other institutions, all of which I would consider pretty traditional state institutions, ranging from a very large R1 to a mid-size state teaching institution with R2 aspirations. Pretty typical student bodies, lots of residential students, you know, it's pretty much what you imagine, you know, an American university is like, and they're the sorts of universities that resembled some of the universities you would see a lot in WAC literature. Also, the institution I left before I came to Park had 0 online classes when I left in 2015, which of course rapidly had to change when COVID happened. But Park already had a really well-established online teaching environment. They taught their first asynchronous online class in the early 90s. I want to say it was 1994, which is the first year I even owned a PC and the World Wide Web was not even a thing. Like web stuff was like Usenet and stuff. So we had this like hugely long history, but I had never been in a university that had massive online stuff. So I show up in 2015 and the provost is like, we want you to build a program from basically nothing. Good luck. And I knew that Park was different from the universities I came from, but I didn't know how different until I really got on the ground and had to figure out how to make WAC work. So let me slide. Okay. So let me just give you some facts about our unique institutional context that has made it a bit of a challenge to develop a WAC program, because schools like mine are not terrifically well represented in WAC literature. There's a lot of complicated reasons for why that's true. We are a private institution, but we are not, like many private institutions, a wealthy school. We are entirely tuition dependent. We do not have big endowments. We are open access in all locations and almost all of our programs. Nursing is a notable exception that still has admission standards. We are nominally a liberal arts university, but we have an administration currently that is disinvesting in the liberal arts, which is happening at a lot of other schools around us, and taking those resources and putting them towards professional programs, largely in business, criminal justice, computer science, and nursing. We have at the moment kind of sort of 8,000 students. Because the majority of our students teach or take classes part-time and they kind of come and go, we can't even get a good head count most of the time. But we do know that this number has dropped. Like the same metrics we use to generate this number generates, you know, numbers from a few years ago where we had something like 15,000 students supposedly. So we're having a steep decline, and because we're tuition dependent, that means budgets are really challenging. And so I had a pretty good budget when I started this program that has been more than halved since then, and yet we're asked to roll out more and more initiatives. Good times. We have a really diverse student body. It's probably the most diverse school I've ever taught at, and I mean diverse both in terms of like race, but we also have a pretty high population of international students. Currently, we have 523 they attend on the main campus in Parkville, the home campus, which is the campus that probably operates most like a traditional liberal arts college. And they are more than 25% of the population at the home campus. So that really sort of changes, you know, the student body in my location where I teach. The average age of our undergraduate students is 30. So we have a lot of non-traditional, not next, you know, first gen students. 53% of our students have some military affiliation. And that is because we operate a number of military-based campuses all over the United States. We have 39 military-based campuses. From the numbers I've seen, the students we are losing are from those campuses. And part of the problem is this campus system is very cumbersome to manage and expensive because we're paying for regional directors at 41 campuses. And so the administrative bloat around that is really troubling, right? A lot more money goes to that than to say instructional faculty. So we end up with problems because of this. We do have one additional residential campus besides mine, which is in Parkville, Missouri, which is in Gilbert, Arizona, and it's a campus that is entirely populated by student athletes. This is the brainchild of our current president who came from the business side of the house and who was placed in charge over the objections of both faculty and staff, and who came to us originally from the for-profit world. And this has become sort of a problem for the faculty because we do not want to operate like the for-profits, but when we have declining budgets and enrollments, that's the model they see as being cheap. Yes, so that extra campus has not been unproblematic. Okay. All right, so the challenges I faced when I first started our program was that we had a really geographically dispersed faculty. The majority of our faculty do not live in Kansas City, which is the metro area where my school is. They report through multiple metrics to our Faculty Center of Innovation and our peer review of teaching program, which evaluates adjunct faculty, that they feel isolated and disconnected from the institution. And that has really not changed much since 2015, which is sort of unfortunate. We also experience pretty widely varying pedagogical preparation of our instructors. And I know that that's true everywhere, but it is especially true, I would argue, at Park, particularly in our professional programs where adjunct faculty are not hired for their teaching expertise, but for their industry experience. And so that really creates a huge gap of knowledge that you have to address. One of the big problems for me, coming from more traditional institutions, that I realize now, I thought this was just normal, but I realize now that faculty in the schools I had come from had a high degree of autonomy and agency in their classes. Not so at Park, because Park has adopted what is sometimes called the enterprise model of course development, in which the majority of our courses are developed by a central course developer who builds a shell, is shoved out through campus, and at the majority of programs, our adjunct faculty can change nothing. So it is really locked down tight. And it is weird, that is not a matter of policy, but it is de facto policy. And there are people who will tell me this is policy. I'm like, my department actually doesn't do that. You can choose, but it's really hard to convince people. And that is very difficult because a lot of WAC stuff is aimed at faculty who get to make choices about what's in their courses. So trying to train people and go and saying, hey, you could do this with assignments. They're like, I can't change the assignments. What do you want me to do? And you're like, I don't know. I kind of think you should get to change your assignments. We have a high number of asynchronous 8-week online courses. The majority of our courses run in this modality, more than 50%, something like 56%, which open access, wide levels of educational achievement, and yet all these courses are accelerated. This is a real challenge for our students. Those courses are perceived, whether or not this is true is hard to say, but are perceived to have higher levels of cheating or plagiarism. There was actually a proven sort of issue in our international student population this year, in which 200 international students got caught up in a contract cheating scandal. So there, I mean, There is some factual basis to believe that this is happening, but they will actually not release metrics to us about how much plagiarism is happening in our environment. They keep telling us they can't report that to us, even though there is a reporting system that they could get data out of. I think the numbers maybe aren't great, but they won't say. Many of our assignments in those online courses, particularly, which again are the majority of our courses, display pretty limited purposes, a la Dan Meltzer's study of assignments across the curriculum. So they have a tendency to be very informational or summary based, and tend to be this sort of like write an essay from nowhere to no one kind of things, you know, that supposedly generic academic essay that is a genre that doesn't really exist in reality except in schooling. And our online courses are often perceived to be stale. Because of our cumbersome development system, it takes so long to get a contract to redevelop a course. And our full-time faculty are so overburdened because, again, we're outnumbered 9-to-1 and they're disinvesting in full-time faculty that we simply cannot keep up 623 individual courses. There's only about 100 full-time faculty, I will say. So that's a lot of courses for us to maintain. The one thing in particular that I think a lot of faculty and students think is really stale is that Park really loves to use the discussion, make a post and 2 replies model. And a lot of those discussions are very summary based, like read the textbook and tell me what it says. So as you can imagine, those discussions are boring. They're so boring for the students and for the faculty who get stuck with it and had no say in the design. We already 4-week WI certification course that's offered asynchronously. This is mostly taken by adjunct faculty. They have to take this to teach WI courses. We do not pay them. This was not my choice. However, I will say that we've written about this if you want to see a deep assessment of that experience. Our metrics in that have remained very, very high, and that is largely because we're very intentional about targeting things that are immediately practical for the adjunct population. So I've actually had adjunct faculty ask me what they need to pay me to take the course, which I'm like, that's nuts, right? We should be paying you, really. We also have a basic WAC summer workshop that I started when I was new. This originally ran in the face-to-face format. It was mostly full-time faculty. At the beginning, though, we did have money to bring out adjunct faculty a couple a year from distance locations. That money has disappeared. Although I did just run it face-to-face. Post-COVID, it's the first time we've run it face-to-face again, and I did have adjunct faculty. I had 3 attend, 2 were local to Kansas City, and 1 person just footed the bill herself to come in from Texas. Now we do pay for that, so she got $750. It was supposed to really pay for her time, but you know. Okay, so one of the things we wanted to do, we have these basic experiences, but it felt like we were never getting past WAC 101. And so I designed an online advanced WAC course. It ran over 5 weeks, and I wanted it to be Zoom blended so that we could get some face-to-face time so there'd be more engagement, but also I wanted it to be accessible, more accessible to faculty at a distance. And I also wanted there to be another paid opportunity that part-time faculty could access, because the WI certification pays them nothing. So once they go through that, they can apply for this, and this time they can earn some money. So we ran the first one last spring. We're getting ready to run another one in the coming academic year. We really wanted to respond to faculty requests for advanced topics, which they do request a lot of stuff. Sorry, I'm just looking at my timer. Through the anonymous surveys and our other experiences, I really wanted to expose faculty to alternatives in assignment design because of that problem where our assignments and our online courses are very sort of summary based, which also helps respond to their concerns about plagiarism, because of course those sort of summary based reportage style writing is the most plagiarizable or the most AI generatable, which is now really freaking out my faculty. And I wanted to also advocate for a better sense of agency and belonging for part-time faculty. So I do kind of regard the work I do as an attempt to break the course development system a little bit and try to like push the boundaries around that lockdown system. that is really difficult to fight when there's a lot of institutional inertia, but I try my best to try to break it a little bit. And I'm really interested in creating more community across disciplines, ranks, and locations, because that sense of dislocation is really big for many of our distance faculty. The home faculty tend to get to know each other because there's only 100 of us and we're in the same space, but our distance faculty don't get to know us or each other often. The other thing I wanted to do, and the reason I wanted to do Zoom blended modality, which basically just means we have synchronous time on Zoom and asynchronous time in Canvas, which is our learning management system, is to be able to model techniques for teaching in those modalities so that we do the training in the modalities that our faculty will be teaching in. So I have to be a good model myself. I've literally taught in every modality we offer. We have like 6 or 7 different modalities at this point. I've taught in every single one, not on purpose or by necessity. Okay, so the workshop design and structure, just to give you a shorthand, we took 10 participants, we paid them $750 to attend. They got free books, some swag, an opportunity to share their work from the workshop with program coordinators, chairs, and academic affairs. So there was some sort of like output that someone outside the workshop would actually see. I also applied for and got some extra funding to bring a speaker from the Meaningful Writing Project, but that is not a guaranteed line of funding. It's competitive. We met over 5 weeks in spring, 90 minutes each week on Zoom on a different topic. Participants completed an assignment each week in Zoom, and each week that discussion modeled a different approach to online discussion. And I've cited one of the resources here. I'll have a resource slide at the end that you can look at. I focused on making participants make stuff that they could use more immediately in their class. By the way, if you go to that bit.ly folder, which I'll have the link here in just a second, again, there it is, PWIWAC 23. You can actually find the entire schedule for the 5 weeks in detail, all the readings and things. But this kind of gives you a sense of the topics we covered weekly. And you'll notice these really do address the concerns that our faculty were having working in the online environment, addressing their concerns about plagiarism, trying to get people to rethink that voice from nowhere research paper and replace it with something that was more audience or meaningful for students, promoting multimodality so that you could use more technology in the online environment of your class. And then their final project was an assignment redesign, and they had to share it with me and with each other, but that got forwarded to their program coordinators, their department chairs, and to academic affairs. So the vice provost and the provost got to see them all. And the goal was to get some academic, power behind getting these things implemented, right? That if the provost endorsed changing a course design, even if you were an adjunct, then there'd be maybe some overcoming of that resistance to change of an online shell that's locked down. Here's some just brief quantitative measures. I mean, I think by these measures, it was pretty successful. We did select 10 faculty, 2 did not attend. 1 had a bike accident literally the weekend before and got hit by a car, so did not attend. And another adjunct faculty member accepted, took the books, and never showed up and never responded to emails ever again. It was a very curious thing. But we had pretty good representation from different fields. College of Liberal Arts and Sciences is most heavily represented, and that is true for the majority of our work, that is the college that's most interested in what we're doing. The College of Management remains somewhat disinvested, although we did have someone from marketing. So I'm more interested in the other outcomes, so qualitative responses. Because although they rate the experience highly, I think the devil's in the details when you go in and look at what they actually said and did. They highly valued learning with colleagues from across the curriculum, so I think we managed that goal. And they really liked the hybrid format. One person said it's the best of both worlds, and they valued having someone who had taught in all of those. teaching the class, because one of the things that has been problematic for us is we bring in speakers from other institutions who tell faculty to do things, and then they're like, well, this is useless, we can't do that, right? So having someone who's in the context is really helpful. Part-time faculty in particular mentioned valuing the sense of camaraderie. Here's the rub, however. So on the one hand, some of the course designs were incredibly successful, got implemented, and some didn't. And I think the question of like, why does some not get implemented is still a problem that we have to overcome. We did have a full-time faculty publish an article about this redesign. He was a political science person. One of the part-time faculty was also political science. So they were together in the same experience. He's a course developer and she's an instructor in his program. They had not actually interacted very much until this moment. And so the fact that they were together in the space meant that he got to see what she was doing and let her implement it, which suggests to me that maybe we need to do this experience intentionally this way at some point. The part-time faculty who did not implement their design are the ones I really sort of am concerned about, because they were both in colleges other than class, which suggests the resistance to giving teachers more agency is stronger in colleges outside of my own. And so that's probably something that we need to really keep looking at and pushing at. Perhaps we'll have to offer workshops specifically for those colleges so that we can get them to invest in this more. Probably the saddest thing is that one of the part-time faculty who implemented her design, and she is in my department has a policy that gives them more editing rights. We have some guardrails around what they can do, but we're way open compared to most schools. She implemented it, then used the fact that she did that in an application to another school, and she left, which is great for her because she got a full-time job and is up for promotion, but we lost all of that. And so we're training them too well so that they can leave us. I'm going to end there just in the interest of time. However, I just want you to know that if you want more information about how we ran this, the folder there, PWI-WAC 23, has a copy of this presentation and the full syllabus for the experience. And then here's all the sources. And if you're curious, by the way, about the fully asynchronous WI course, we've written a much longer piece about it and across the discipline. So if you're curious how fully asynchronous WAC training goes, we have written about that as well. All right.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
This is Julie Mena. Hey, everybody. We can transition over. We're going to try and do Q&A at the end. So as we switch over, I will say, I'm coming from Southern New Hampshire University. I'm a dean of liberal arts, social sciences. Have some colleagues here with me. We all work on writing cross curriculum in different ways. And I actually love reconnecting and presenting with Amy again, because our institutions do share some similarities. We have both not-for-profit, private institutions. We both have campuses and online spaces, large online spaces. And so for us, we were kind of doing online work before the pandemic and therefore have, I think, a lot of good things to share. And I can actually share on my end if you want to pull that down. That way I can advance the slides.
Just a minute, I'm trying to, there's tech issues in this room.
Tech issue, okay. Well, or you can put it up, and if you can hear us ask when to advance the slide, we can work that way. We can be flexible. I'll say, we'll see if we can do that. And if not, that's all right. I want to be brief and let Hannah and Amanda start their pieces. But in short, our part of this presentation is in two parts. Part one is around work that we've done to influence administrator and faculty practices. trying to move towards, ideas around critical language awareness at our institution. And the second part is focused on work that we're trying to do to make changes within our standard curriculum. So what Amy described as enterprise or standard curriculum, we've got that too. And, we're able to have some benefits with that, because if we make changes within our course content, then, that can reach and influence and kind of educate by proxy students and faculty about kind of, if they're not familiar with more sort of update approaches to teaching. Yeah, we can work with this. That's fine. Then, these are ways that we can reach them as well. But in fact, we've done a lot of different kinds of things to try and outreach faculty and our fellow deans and other people in our community that you're going to hear about. So in this talk, you're going to hear us reference critical language awareness, or CLA. And we talk about that in the sense of trying to influence our colleagues away from ideas of inherent correctness and appropriateness within written communication, and towards thinking critically about the role of, power and context with our writing choices. So Hannah and Amanda are going to be saying a lot more about that, but I do want to note that we've included reference slides to show the scholars that have influenced our work and our thinking, and that work that we've been sharing with colleagues for several years. So we owe a lot of gratitude to Dr. April Baker-Bell, Dr. Sao Nue, Dr. Shauna Shapiro, and many others whose work has impacted our direction and helped us think better about the work that we do. So can we advance to the next slide? Oh, and that first slide shows kind of the challenges with scale, as well as we have, a very large student body, a large number of remote faculty, distributed faculty. And so as of today, we are celebrating the progress that we've made in that all of our faculty teaching general education courses are going through now a required training about linguistic diversity. There's a lot of content in there, but there's a good bit about linguistic diversity, and a self-paced online training for all of our faculty, open all of our faculty across the curriculum on effective writing pedagogy that includes linguistic diversity ideas is currently in the works, being developed. So we're also celebrating the news that our gen ed courses will soon have rubrics for assessing written communication that are informed, where they're revised and informed by CLA principles that the folks giving this presentation helped to develop. So this is the culmination, though, of, here's a timeline, years, several years of advocating, building coalitions, taking many different kinds of steps, not just one type, not just one kind of training, but, conversations, small and large, interventions of different kinds to help bring our colleagues along, educate them, ultimately share leadership with them in the work. And so Hannah and Amanda will refer back to this timeline in their talk, but look forward to having more information shared with you about this. And Hannah, I'll turn it over to you now.
Right. Thank you, Julie. If you could advance to the next slide, please. As we look at this timeline and think about how we got to where we are today and how we'll get to be where we want to be a year from now, 3 years from now, and beyond, a few key themes come to mind that we wanted to share today. And our hope is that this information could be useful to you if you're planning to begin similar work on your campus, or even if you're right in the middle of it already. So one of the first things we've really focused on is having authentic conversations on our campus at our institution. When we first started this work, I have to admit, I was nervous coming from a dominant language background. I was worried to say the wrong thing. I thought I might use the wrong terms. I didn't know how I would answer hard questions. I was also concerned about about how speakers of underrepresented varieties of English who have faced hardships and discrimination due to their linguistic background or their linguistic choices would view me. Would they think I was inauthentic? Would I unintentionally misrepresent ideas on the topic? The topic was very important to me, but I didn't know that I was the right person always to deliver the message. But Julie challenged me to dive into the work and gave me resources and support. So I started having authentic conversations where I really tried to ensure participants were safe to ask questions, to share ideas. And this took place both one-on-one and in larger settings. I remember one authentic conversation that I had with a colleague. I had shared searching for an Appalachian accent in a video that's part of the North Carolina State Life and Language Project. And the video highlights the importance of language to a culture and the relationship between language and identity. And my colleague initially had a negative reaction to the video, but we were able to discuss what it means and why it's important and how we can better listen and give voice to all speakers. We talked about the linguistic richness of the speakers in the video and how they gave life to communication in unique ways that were insightful and powerful. And that conversation was hard because I was worried I had upset my colleague, but each conversation since has become just a little bit easier. And now Julie, Amanda, and I, along with other colleagues, tried to bring up these topics and encourage authentic conversation frequently. We're not afraid to admit what we don't know, what we've learned along the way, what we still aren't sure about, what we're still trying to learn. We're just having authentic conversations with our colleagues. And I learned early on that one of the keys to these authentic conversations happening and going well was to be prepared. I had to do my research and learn as much as I could. I read books and articles and watched interviews. I became better informed about this topic and was able to point back to the research, some of which Julie mentioned a moment ago, research of others too, like Lara Borditsky and Alyssa Cavazos, Walt Wolfram, Vershawn and Shanti Young, Jeffrey Pullum, and of course, many more. So when our colleagues asked us questions, we were more comfortable discussing the topics with others. We obviously aren't afraid to admit we don't know everything and we're still learning, but then we can go do the research and then bring it back to our colleagues with a better understanding. And by being prepared, these conversations have gone a lot more smoothly and also opened many doors for us. You'll hear Amanda share more about our rubric update that Julie just alluded to a minute ago, but it's a really big deal for us to consider a large scale change like this at our institution. For context, we ran over 7,200 undergraduate course sections and over 1,400 graduate course sections last term. There were over 1,000 unique course offerings and over 6,000 faculty members facilitating those courses. And so this scale shows why these decisions are considered so carefully at our institution. But one day, on the spot, a member of our senior leadership asked me why I thought it was important to rethink how we assess and discuss grammar and language. And I was quickly able to respond because we have done so much research. And I was able to tell her, that standard American English, portraying it as the only correct form of English is not accurate and does not align with composition rhetoric research. And we were able to have a conversation about that. And her response was positive and became an opportunity to build knowledge together. But then she was also able to communicate that with others that she is in contact with who haven't heard some of the things that we've shared before, but without prior preparation, that opportunity may have been lost. That conversation was short and may seem insignificant to some, but we don't really see any opportunity as being too small or insignificant. We really try to value each opportunity we have with our colleagues. And I think we've made a big impact by taking that approach. We didn't only want to do big trainings or write position papers. We wanted to support an instructor working with a student or listen to a colleague about their own language experience, or further explain to a colleague some of the work that we're doing. So we focused on doing the small things while we waited for bigger opportunities to arise. And I recently had one of these small scale opportunities when a colleague asked me about why the way we talk about grammar is so important to me and the way we talk about language. And I was able to have a conversation with her about how we approach our learners' diverse language backgrounds and how we talk to them about their linguistic and rhetorical choices. And it was really productive. And it might seem small, but the impact is big because this colleague is a project manager, interacts with a lot of people, has influence or at least a connection to a lot of course developments, which ultimately is a lot of lives that can be impacted. One of our larger efforts was when we had an opportunity to make some revisions to our current courses. Our associate dean who oversees first year composition courses took the opportunity to update the language of one of our rubric rows to remove the word errors in relation to grammar. Instead, that element now focuses on making language choices that align with audience and purpose. Our first year composition courses reach thousands of students every term. Close to 90,000 have been enrolled in these courses since the rubric changes took place. And this change has allowed us to reiterate our values, but more importantly, the way that we value our learners. Another important component of us, creating a movement toward change is strategic partnerships. And it's one of the most important and rewarding aspects, in my opinion, of advocating for a more inclusive language environment, because we've been able to build a lot of meaningful relationships. While one person can make a difference, or the three of us can, do the best we can, we quickly learned that we needed to start bringing along like-minded people to join us and to advocate for supporting our linguistically diverse learners in their spheres of influence across the university. So finding other doers who are willing to share knowledge with their colleagues has led to organic change in many departments. I sometimes joke that we've infiltrated different departments, but what we've done is we've connected with people from all across the institution who have then gone back to their spaces and become advocates, bringing other people alongside them. As one example, one of our departments runs weekly webinars for their faculty members, and they asked me to talk about linguistic diversity in May of 2020. About a year ago, one of the deans said she would like to present on that topic and asked if I could help her with the content. So we worked through it together. We discussed topics she thought were important. I gave her some examples to use. We wrote an outline together and discussed how she might address questions that could arise during the webinar. So she double checked her understanding of a few things. She took her outline, she took her notes, and she led the webinar on her own. She recently came back to me because she wanted to refresh her faculty members on the topic. And the only support she asked for was just knowing if any of the scholarship had changed. So by bringing others to the table and partnering with them strategically, so much more is being accomplished than I ever imagined, and then Amanda, Julie, and I could ever accomplish on our own. As we sit here and share some of these highlights to you, it's easy to see that the journey so far has been worth it. But as you saw in that timeline from Julie, it's taken years for us to get to this place, and it will take us years to get to where we ultimately want to be. But that's okay. We're more inclusive today than we were 6 months ago, and I hope we're more inclusive next month than we are today. These types of changes take a lot of patience and a lot of persistence, but it's worth staying invested in them. One example this is when I initially shared some of these ideas with some colleagues. There was resistance. They said things like, well, this isn't very practical, but what about grammar? Our language is going to fall apart. I'm sure you've all heard things like that before. So I answered questions the best that I could, not always perfectly for sure, and just kept talking and sharing and giving examples and tips. Fast forward to close to 2 years later, and the same team who was worried that our language was going to fall apart, invited me to talk to them about how to balance respecting our learners' linguistic uniqueness while preparing them for the workplace. And we had a fantastic conversation, and now I've heard at least 3 members of that team bring up the topic of valuing our learners' linguistic backgrounds in other settings. If you go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So that's how we approach things with our internal colleagues, but we also have over 7,300 active adjunct faculty members at our institution, and reaching them is very important, but a completely different experience. So we use some different strategies to work with them. I mentioned earlier, we took any opportunity that came our way, big or small, but we had to be intentional about creating opportunities too, right? Because they weren't just coming to us. So a couple of years ago, Juliet encouraged me to reach out to a member of our training and development team about doing another webinar, which led to my favorite opportunity to date. We did a 4-part webinar series that included different speakers each week. We had peer-led breakout rooms. We gave pre-reads to participants so that they could learn about the topics and be prepared to discuss them to really maximize our time together. And then we had a goodie bag of resources after each session. While we all, of course, have to keep in mind the boundaries of our institution's policies when we are looking for these opportunities, most of the time we have to go out there and make things happen and be willing to do things differently than they've been done before, right? Especially early on as we're building momentum and a movement toward change. This series was a great way to meet our faculty members where they are. We made each session just 30 minutes long so it would fit into their schedules. And we asked faculty and staff members to lead the breakout rooms. And we had quite a few who were willing to do so. We provided training materials to support them so that they had confidence and they felt empowered. This opportunity also gave them voice and built enthusiasm among peers because it wasn't just, the deans giving another webinar. The vast majority of our opportunities are not nearly that big, but we have been intentional about creating opportunities that would resonate with our faculty members. However, only a small subset of our faculty members teach writing. And so a lot of them see something like a webinar series on linguistic diversity, and they might not just jump in because they don't necessarily think that it's going to apply to them. It can sometimes be hard to find common ground on that aspect of the conversation. So what we've tried to do is find common ground around our university's mission and ongoing initiatives, as well as our core values. Our faculty members are passionate about the work that they do as educators. So we've tried to frame our conversations around what they already deem to be important, right? Such as treating our learners with care, valuing our diversity, providing a transformational educational experience for all. By connecting with faculty members around something that's already important to them, many have started to view valuing linguistic diversity and being more careful with language as an extension of the work they do instead of something that the writing folks should handle. By connecting linguistic diversity to our university-wide initiatives, we were able to incorporate a writing at SNHU guide and a section on linguistic diversity into a recent training that all general education faculty members were required to take to teach in our new general education program set to launch this fall, which means over 1,900 faculty members, most of them who don't teach writing, were able to learn more about these concepts and why they are important and what their role is in supporting linguistic justice. With such a large distributed faculty workforce comprised of faculty members who represent many, many communities, we really have tried to open doors to conversations, even in a large training like that. We don't want to set forth mandates. We don't want to prescribe certain methods or approaches. These are hard topics and they challenge how we ourselves learned. They challenge how we've taught in the past. They may even, challenge how our industry views language currently. So trying to force our faculty members to think a certain way or provide feedback using a particular approach doesn't value them for the professionals they are, and it doesn't lead to a collaborative partnership. So instead of dictating these things, we held many spaces in a variety of formats where we just worked to gently reframe their thinking. We've held live webinars, and recorded trainings, online discussion groups, where faculty members could just come and listen. They could reflect and ask questions. We've tried to have quite a few different opportunities so they can come back and do that again, several times and just keep learning. And over time, they usually, become more open to the ideas. We focused on giving examples and showing what it looks like to apply what we're discussing, not just giving them theoretical information. We've helped them rethink and challenge commonly held beliefs and ways of approaching language and methods for assessing communication. But because we've used a gentle approach, they most often come to their own conclusions and become truly invested in critical language awareness. After we'd done a couple of webinars with some pushback, Julie encouraged me to create practical guidance to help reframe faculty members' perspectives. And so I developed 3 slides and they're linked there under the reframing thinking on the side, just to help reshape people's thoughts and dispel some myths. They're very basic, what scholars are saying and what scholars are not saying, unsupportive approaches and supportive approaches, critical communication and thoughtful communication. And in these charts, it's just a very practical way for faculty members to see like, oh, that's what they mean. I had this misunderstanding and now it makes sense. And they can see kind of the difference in what it looks like to truly support our learners around language and how we have conversations around linguistic and rhetorical choices. And a lot of times when they see that practical example, they realize that they actually do agree with us most of the time. And so it's just a kind of that gentle reframing rather than coming in and being forceful, like you must do this, because we do want to be respectful of our colleagues and the experiences they've had. And along with that, we'd all love it if we could just come in, share an idea and everybody would, agree with us, right? But the reality is not everyone is familiar with ideas about linguistic diversity, inclusive language practices, critical language awareness, and not everybody wants to advocate for those things. Faculty members often push back on these ideas and do think there's only one correct form of English. So instead of shutting people down or not letting them share their ideas or their experiences or their rationale, we've invited those conversations. We made space with faculty members to share their ideas each time we've presented on these topics, whether that's through a Q&A, a chat thread, accompanying an e-poster, breakout rooms, whatever we do, we always want our faculty members to feel like they can share their ideas and present any concerns, questions, or challenges that they have. One of the ways we did this was by creating weekly discussions within an asynchronous DEI book club space that we have. And in the weekly prompts, we invited faculty members to be honest and to share their experiences or their concerns, any hesitations they might have, any successes that they wanted to share. And this allowed for authentic conversation and helped them feel heard. It gave them the opportunity to share any challenges. And then also gave us the opportunity to engage in conversation with them and share additional research with them. And the percentage of faculty members who interact in those spaces is pretty small, but we always want to have the opportunity for people to discuss and the freedom to feel that they can do so. So I told you about quite a few large-scale efforts we've put forth, but a lot of work is done in our daily one-on-one or small group interactions as well. Our faculty members are looking to us to model critical language awareness. And as we model these practices, we start to change the culture and the language of our institution. Modeling can be hard. I'm still in the process of learning and changing my own language practices. I was recently having a conversation with someone and I didn't use just person-centered language. So I stopped and said that I didn't use person-centered language like I should have. I revised my statement and then moved on. And in that conversation, the person was able to see that, reshaping our language is a learning process. And when we make a mistake, it's important enough, we should correct it in the moment and do things right. And then how we can practically bring some of these concepts into our own language. Another person that I work with a lot was using insensitive language about an underappreciated variety of English. So every time we spoke, I used a more thoughtful term. And after a while, I noticed that he too started using that more sensitive term. At times, the work can feel slow, but in moments like that, we get to see that change is happening across our institution. Now, this person who never intended to be an advocate is going around speaking carefully on these topics, using sensitive language and bringing them up with others. And so it is a ripple effect that's worth our time. You can move to the next slide, please. So the last thing here is just it's good to recognize all of our progress. And one way we have recognized this is through the same timeline Julie started with, just tracking key moments on our journey as can be seen here. In our first training, that LD training from January of 2020, we had maybe 50 composition instructors join us. The attendance was similar or maybe even less for the 3 tips webinar a few months later. We did another webinar not listed here with an attendance of 172 in June of 2020. And then a year later, we held the summer series that I referenced earlier, where we had about 215 and 25 peer facilitators on average each week. But fast forward a little less than 2 years later to that last one there, the Gen Ed training, over 1,900 faculty members have completed that training. That includes a section on linguistic diversity. And so while we do need to look forward because there's more work to be done, there's more things to learn, looking back is invaluable. So I hope that as each of you are on a similar journey, you'll take the time to recognize and celebrate the ways you personally and your institutions as a whole are becoming more inclusive. Now I'm going to pass it over to Amanda, who's going to share about how she and her team have brought critical language awareness into our curriculum.
All right. Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? All right.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, we could go on to the next slide. Thank you. So I am an instructional designer with our Learning Science and Assessment Department. And here we're going to take a look again at our timeline here. And I'm just going to draw your attention to some important points in our timeline. If we take a look at where we've highlighted here, the spring and summer of 2022 and the winter of 2023. This is where we are looking at our position paper and some user testing. These are some critical moments in our processes. And this is where I'm going to start to share some information with you all. And we could go on to the next slide. Thank you. So as an instructional designer, it's important to recognize that language is our most valuable asset, inclusive language, in fact. So instructional designers' language choices and rubrics impact students' understanding of writing expectations. The more we carefully utilize consistent language throughout the learning experience, from overviews to content to prompts to rubric elements, the better we can support our students' comprehension. At SNHU, like most higher education institutions, we're focused on our goals of DEI and belonging, but we're also focused on student persistence. A great deal of our research and our discussions from our working group, first and foremost, elevated the notion that language is not inherently correct or incorrect, that it is process-based in nature, and as such, language and assessment prompts and rubrics should represent a progression of skill development and should in no way be represented as binary or punitive. In terms of how we approached revising our rubric elements specific to CLA was to identify our objectives first. So the first objective of our working group agreed to address and remove any language in coursework that was student facing or instructor facing that indicated that SAE, Standard American English, was the only correct English. We needed to dispel that. We needed to take that out. So here on the screen, I've shared with you on the left in yellow a standard segment of our rubric, the articulation of response element to be specific. With our initiative, we work to define the rubric criteria more clearly for both students and instructors. Now, mind you, we're working at scale for our university. We have a very large university. We also have a very large, as we noted, faculty. So this was really important that we calibrate our expectations. So we needed to work to define the rubric criteria more clearly for both students and instructors. This row in our rubric had become misunderstood by students. It also become miscalibrated by many instructors. It had, in essence, become a bit of a catch-all for grading. If an instructor had not liked how a student had set something up grammatically, or it just kind of became like this catch-all for grammar, for this or that. And so we needed to really hone in on how we can make this better, to advocate for our students and to also set them up for success, but also help our instructors as well. So in order to address our primary objectives, our working group engaged in scholarship, a lot of research. And this included current employer research. We additionally consulted with our chief diversity officer and staff with a goal to better align writing assessment with our DEI goals and foster a better sense of belonging with students with diverse linguistic backgrounds. We took our first step, which was to conduct a literature review. We produced a white paper with the research-based recommendations. That was our first step. We published it, sent it all out to leadership. It was great. It was a success. Prior to evaluating interim, we conducted a series of user experience testing with students and faculty. Testing was focused on clear communication row as well as the rubric communication titles. The purpose of this testing was to gauge reaction to the language for clarity and rubric specificity. For our rubric row titles, we sought to narrow down from a set of 4 what set of titles would be most preferred. We used our current exemplary set, 2 iterations of expectation-based titles, and 1 that was objective levels, such as level 1, level 2, etc. And people did not respond positively to that at all. The top 2 performing ones were the expectation one and the current existing one we already had in place. There's a familiarity with that. The results from the user experience testing prompted the use of the clear communication row for use in term in the expectation-based set of titles. The user testing supported our working group's initial white paper research, affirming findings from both faculty and students. After this small group user research testing, it was concluded that there was merit in this change and that this does in fact support greater flexibility in linguistic diversity and equitable grading of language outside of standard American English. We found language invoked a great deal of feeling when it came to the evaluation of writing. In particular, our needs improvement category, language was not well received as it was reported to be very persons based language. People were looking for expectations based language. All formative rubrics in the courses changed along with performance level titles. Even binary rubrics were tested. We went from evident and not evident to meets expectations and does not meet expectations. Those changes can be seen on the rubric set on the right, outlined in blue. In large part, this change impacted student-facing language. The deans and faculty were provided and informed of the changes of the student-facing language to assist with student feedback. So for example, when providing critical feedback to students, they can take direct rubric language from the rubric and say, you have met expectations for this assignment. Or they can offer, you have exceeded expectations for this assignment by, or you have partially met expectations for this assignment. The criteria, in essence, as the sentence starters for the feedback. Findings from this round of the user research was inconclusive in terms of our students' persistence, which is something we're working to build, but our data did provide that students preferred the direct clarity of the language. This really helped with that. Overall, our testing recommended a systematic expansion across the university that reaffirmed our primary goal that we set out to do, with the original working group set out to do in the original position paper. In order to do so, however, a number of technical elements will need to be resolved, however. I'm going to ask you to go to the next slide. So from an instructional design perspective, we've learned a number of strategies, excuse me, that are important just from our initial research and our initial user testing. With positive outcomes from this research testing, we're optimistic as we move forward with this initiative. As we continue to advance our learning at scale, we continue to advance our understanding and perspective for design in terms of language and inclusivity, as we recognize the statistical significance of our population's linguistic needs. Being an institution that serves such a diverse group of learners from its global campus, and since language is tied inherently close with a person's identity, SNHU's instructional design team excuse me, identifies language beyond the rubric and has also begun incorporating a quality assurance process to assess for asset-based language from initial conceptual design stage of development to person-first language, as well to do an overall examination of plain language, which has also been a standard practice for the past few years now, for some time now. In terms of targeted strategies, we have taken from the research we have prioritized in relation to our general education program. It's currently in development and has been running. And is being tested with our new rubric model. We've included the following instructional strategies and ideologies in this learning environment. So we've prioritized the following. The first being student voice. It's important for students to have the opportunity to write in their own voice. From their earliest general education experiences, we're working with students to foster interpersonal communication. It's important to have strategies in place for students to be able to focus on diverse backgrounds. We want students to challenge and reflect on their own biases, communication styles, think about how they interact with the world in comparison to one another. This challenge ties directly to the scholarship and to the second point, in which there's strength in diversity. Some students may view their dialect as a disadvantage or a difference, but it's important to promote that strength in the diversity. It's important that the curriculum reflects that and that instructors reinforce that. Scholarship also reinforces the idea of having student-facing and instructor-facing statement guidelines. Adding a statement to the syllabus or course that states that linguistic diversity is welcome is an integral aspect to identity. And probably most significantly noted across the scholarship is training and support. As Hannah had mentioned, the continuity and calibration of expectations should be set and maintained across all stakeholders. That is so, so, so important. Excuse me. And finally, some of the other formative ideas and things that we've captured through our research and that we're currently implementing. Peer reviews, something not new to the higher education landscape, but students using the idea of peer reviews, using rubrics to provide feedback to peers allows students to familiarize themselves with expectations for writing, while also learning to synthesize the language of the writing rubric. Having students immerse themselves in the language of the rubrics helps them to interact, helps them to take more agency in those rubrics. Self-assessments, again, agency in those rubrics. Through self-correction, students develop a more reflective practice to their writing. Research supports a reflective approach to self-assessment as it better fosters that linguistic diversity. Students become more aware of their own level of self-agency as they are able to revise their own work. And the overall takeaway and focus that informed all of our research, all of our work, and all of our user testing that has thus far taken us to this point as we continue to do the work is that to ensure our growth, ensure our pedagogical practice in this work within our linguistic diversity is that it is of utmost importance to place emphasis not on the finished product, but to place emphasis on the process, and that it is not about the standardized correctness, but it is on the drafting and revisioning of the writing. It's the process. So even our design philosophies are much more based on the formatives in lieu of the summatives. We are having students interact more with feedback more so than ever. We are teaching students how to use feedback more so than ever before, which is so, so important. And finally, to support students in becoming more effective communicators, we realize it's important to acknowledge that language is fluid, flexible, and diverse. Code meshing and code switching are common practices in communication. Course content should be designed to reflect different dialects and patterns of expression. Students should interact with peers in both formal and informal capacities to understand the nuances of dialects and code, as well as interact with resources that show linguistically diverse patterns of language, which is not always easy to find. As an instructional designer, it is not always easy to find those resources, so we do challenge ourselves to find those resources, but we will continue to challenge ourselves to do that. So that is what we have learned, and we continue to learn each and every day and challenge ourselves to learn every day with that. So with that, I will pass it back to Julie, and thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate it. We can move on to the next slide and through to Q&A. And one thing that strikes me is, the passion that I'm hearing from Amy and from my colleagues here in common to, educate and reach out to faculty and engage their agency and all of that and make them, kind of co-conspirators. Hannah, your term infiltrating different teams. I can see that we are bringing folks along with us, and it's a really great thing. So if we're good, we can move into Q&A. And full disclosure, I can't see the chat. I've not been able to figure that out. So if someone could either read from the chat, and I know there are folks in the room there who I can't see but may have questions.
The only chat we have is the Hoover. The Zoom chat was disabled to make room for Hoover. And if anyone in the room has a question, I will pass this microphone to you. Other than that, we can hear everyone online just fine.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Thank you all for your wonderful information. One thing that sticks out to me is just the plethora of theoretical framing and foundations that are required for some of this faculty fellow or workshop-based work. So I'm wondering how both of y'all's programs kind of balance that theoretical backing of linguistic justice, or even things like the Meaningful Writing Project, with some of the more application-based information.
Or either of you online? I'll take a stab at it. I think it can be a delicate balance because many of our faculty do not really come from academic programs that focus on teaching. And so sometimes when we assign things like readings for academic in nature, adjunct faculty check out. They don't read and write in academic disciplines because they're practitioners in the field, right? And so I've had to be a lot more intentional about being very careful about what I assign as reading versus what I translate into video or whatever. And so I feel like I become this like translator for the academic research on, WAC and SOTL, because I do both of those things for a faculty who really aren't part of the sort of academic discourse community. But that is an ongoing challenge for us. Yeah. Someone who does not regularly read, academic journal articles on teaching to get through the materials. Hours. Yeah. I learned that very quickly when, people are sort of irate with me. Right.
So I have the stupid foreigner question. I am familiar with WAC. I have published in WAC for some time, but you made a distinction between WAC 101 and advanced WAC. What is that distinction?
Summer workshop model that has been run in WAC programs since basically the 70s. Like if you look at the WAC with mapping project, one of their statistics is that summer workshop is probably the most common instantiation of faculty support, right? So, the typical WAC 101 work. Yes and yes. I mean, very often the content will circle around John Bean's book, which is sometimes referred to as the WAC Bible. I use it because it's really helpful. And it will cover sort of basic content like what is WAC, writing, what is writing to learn, what is writing in the disciplines, some basics on giving better feedback, that kind of stuff. Advanced WAC would be moving past that sort of introductory material into more in-depth information or getting into topics that we can't cover in the summer workshop. So that's what I mean. So sometimes we just get stuck at the introduction to WAC level and don't move people along into more advanced areas. They did. Yep. They had to take either the summer workshop or the 4-week writing intensive to qualify. And then they could apply for it. And we vetted applications based on, having disciplinary representation and how much impact they wanted to have on their curriculum. We really wanted people who wanted to make an impact and didn't just want the money, because that could be a problem. But we had 25 people apply for 10 spots. Well, I have limited funding, so I can really only pay 10 people. So we'll probably do it again. Other questions? Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you to those of you who are online. Thank you.
You wanna hang out and talk with me, I'll hang around for a while. if people have questions. Hi, y'all. It was so nice to see you virtually.
Thanks so much, everybody.
You all for coming. Thank you. It was really informative. You're doing awesome stuff with really little. Yeah, no, I haven't gotten my budget. for next year, so that's, if you don't actually know, I'm the associate provost who I report to for this part of my job, just quit. Oh, and they haven't even told me who's gonna oversee the program anymore. And he may or may not have filed the budget, nobody can tell me. Oh my God. So we're in total chaos.